Hi, commandment number 6 is the law forces itself on everyone. Grace is for those who ask for it. I ended the previous section with the confession that as I was carrying my backpack up this mountain, grumbling about the fact that some aren't carrying anything, some are carrying too little, and I am carrying more than I possibly can carry up that mountain, but I'm too proud to ask for help. I want to make a radical statement and say that I believe God allowed for that sickness and the heavy pack on my back to bring me to my knees because He wanted to give me grace, because He knew that as long as I was able to carry my own load, I would never ask for grace. The Lord doesn't ask you, do you want rules? It just dumps it on the lot of us. We don't get an option. We get a conscience that scorches us when we put one step out of the way. We get people around us who will tell us when we do it wrong. We get a world full of rules and laws that constantly measure us and find us wanting. So the law doesn't ask permission to work its job in our lives, and its job is to bring us to our knees. But grace does come through a door that's opened from the inside. We have to get to the point where we say, I think this is it. I think I need it right now. And I wasn't ready on that mountain to admit it at all. I tried all sorts of smart ways to get by. I took more breaks. I leaned against the rock faces a little more. I decided that I wouldn't sit down, knowing that if I sat down, I wouldn't be able to get upright again with this load on my back. So there were ways to keep carrying this burden so that I wouldn't have to ask for help. And so we're on this crater rim eventually. It's called Gilman's Point, when you can actually get your certificate that you have summited Kilimanjaro. You haven't gotten to quite the highest point yet, but you are on top. And at Gilman's Point you can look down and you can see how far you've come. And usually by now it's fairly light. It's not sunrise yet, because the ideal is that you reach Uhuru by sunrise. That's the pretty picture that I missed by hours. But so we basically saw the sunrise more or less at Gilman's Point, and we were sitting there, those of us who could, were eating a little something. And at that point, this person who wasn't carrying anything was already coming back from having summited at sunset, or a sunrise rather, and she was looking really energetic, as I said earlier, and she came around, and we were trying to still work up the nerve to go all the way around to Uhuru, which is on the crater rim, but right at the highest point. And she looked at me and my friend, and she told me, you know what, you don't look so good. And all of this negative feedback from my body and from my environment and from this doctor who tells me, do you realize how much further you have to go, brought me to the place where I finally realized that I'm going to have to ask for grace if I'm ever going to get it. And even at that point, I wasn't ready. I kept telling myself, I'm just going to try a little more, just another hour, just to that point. And that point came at another marker on the journey called Stellar Point. And at that point, I finally sat down, took off my backpack, put it on the ground, not knowing how I would pick it up again. And suddenly there was this commotion to the one side. And as I looked, people were coming over a little bump on this crater rim. And they all had their eyes focused on the ground. And they were laughing, and they were clearly celebrating having summited. That much was clear. And they had all sorts of equipment that they were carrying with them. And as I looked closer, I saw that what was on the ground that they were focusing was a person. It was a young man without arms and legs. He just had 4 little stumps like this, and on the edge of his stumps he had a covering, a little rubber and chain covering that would grip on the snow. And it was his day 18 on which he summited Kilimanjaro. This is our day 5, but he had been on that mountain 18 days, crawling on these little stumps with his crew around him. And as I looked at him, and I saw he didn't have a burden. He didn't have a pack. The people around him were carrying this. And clearly, this happened because he knew where his limits were. And he knew what he could do in his own strength. And he asked for help for what he couldn't do. He wasn't as proud as I was. And at that point, I finally tanked. Because I knew he could never have gone there with a burden. And neither can I. It's either me going to Uhuru, to freedom, without my backpack, or I'm not going at all. Because the law, the rules, the carrying my 20 Ks, the doing it the right way will never get you all the way to freedom. It's not where that journey goes. It goes to death, not to life. So I looked at my porter, his name was Ramadhani, and just a little side note you may enjoy. He's named after Ramadan, the Islam festival. He is a Muslim, and in so much of the legalistic frame of mind, one would say, I'll ask for help, but definitely not from this guy. If somebody's going to be my angel, my saving grace, my relief from the law, then this person needs to be squeaky clean. But no, here is an unbeliever, probably not qualified in any way to give Christian service from a legalistic point of view. And I had to look up to him as my savior in that particular situation, and I did. As a person who really needs grace, is like a drowning person who waves his arms and he doesn't ask for your credentials when you come to save them. They just go, yes please, whoever you are, get me out of the hole I'm sinking into. And I said, Ramadhani, can you please carry my bag? And he stooped down and he took it and he flung it over his shoulder. The only one that had nothing on it, because there was something on his back, on his chest and on his other arm. And he looked at me and he said, thanks ma'am, it's a light one. And as Ramadhani said, it's a light one, I realized that Jesus was the only one who was ever strong enough to carry all of our burdens. And the sum total of the whole world's burdens was not enough to crush him. Well, it did crush him in the sense that he died underneath the weight of all that injustice. But he was able and willing to carry it for us. And my little load, my 20 kilograms on my back, is laughable compared to what he can carry. It's nothing. But I insist to hold on to it, and I have so many times. And as I had this realization, so many instances in my life came to mind. So many times I suffered and broke down and possibly hurt the people around me because I didn't know how to say, can you please carry my load? Grace does that. Grace waits until we wave the white flag and we give up. And in that sense, the tougher the journey becomes and the more broken down you are right now, the closer you are to grace.